Hello everyone. Thank you for attending today's Watershed webinar, Riparian Buffers and NatureWorks Park. Our presenters are Miss Suzanne Black, Miss Chelsea Ergler, and Miss Beth Futrick from the Blair County Conservation District.
Hi everybody, I'm Suzanne Black. I work for the Blair County Conservation District as a conservation education specialist. And I also do programs here at NatureWorks Park in Hollidaysburg. It's on Bedford Street across the road from Chimney Rocks. So if you haven't been here yet, you need to come out. And today joining me will be Chelsea Ergler and also Beth Futrick. So what I'm going to talk about today is different sources of pollution that we can find in our own neighborhoods. And to do that, I'm going to be using the Enviroscape model. So what is the problem with having pollution in our neighborhoods? Well, when it starts to storm, where does all that water go? And so a lot of times when I ask kids this question is they think it goes into the sewer. And that's not really the case. Most of our stormwater runoff ends up going down into drains that are on the side of the road and directly into our rivers and streams. And since we live in the Chesapeake Bay watershed, those rivers and streams end up leading to the Chesapeake Bay. And all that pollution can actually kill everything that lives in our own local streams and also the Chesapeake Bay. So we're going to talk about different sources of pollution and things that we can do to help that and stop the pollution from getting into the water. So we'll start over here with our neighborhood first. So this looks a little bit like my neighborhood, even with some construction. We'll get the construction out of the way here. What are some types of pollution that are in our neighborhood? So how many of you have a dog? All right, so I have 3 dogs. And what do? They go to the bathroom in your backyard. So I'm putting some doggy do. Chelsea, you want to come smell this? No. No. Okay, so it's actually hot chocolate. I love doing that to the kids when I'm working with children. I have them smell my fingers and they cringe. So this is hot chocolate. So we have doggy do. And if we don't pick it up, it will get washed away in the rain eventually. And then a lot of us like to have these green grass in our backyards. So what do? We add some fertilizer. There's some fertilizer to make it green. And then we also add pesticides because who likes weeds in their yards, right? A lot of people don't like the weeds and they even try to kill the dandelions, which are it's really bad because that is one of the first foods for our bees and our pollinators. So we have dog do, we have fertilizer, we have herbicides. Some people don't like insects, so then they're going to kill them with some pesticides. All right, and then in the wintertime, especially if our driveways get icy, we also add some salt to our driveways and our roads and our neighborhoods so our cars and we don't slip. I actually took a pretty good fall this winter because my driveway ended up being a sheet of ice. So then that's our neighborhood. Next, we're going to go to a construction zone. So we have all this equipment and it's taking all the trees, all the shrubbery away. And what we're left with is soil. And what is the problem with that? Well, what happens when it rains? The water actually picks up that soil and can wash it away. So construction zones can be very, very bad for water pollution. Then we also have this heavy equipment. What happens if the equipment isn't working very well? Well, if I can get this, Chelsea, can you open that? Sometimes the equipment will leak oil. So not only do we have all this soil, but now we have oil running from the equipment So then let's go over here, our school buildings. And you think, well, what kind of sources of pollution come from our school buildings? Well, sometimes if kids don't have all their papers in their backpack, they can lose some trash in the parking lots. So we have trash. Oh, that's going directly into the stream already with the wind. Look at that. And then we also don't want our teachers and students to slip and fall in the winter time. So what are we going to do? Put salt on the parking lots and sidewalks. And then in the summertime, I always get a letter in the mail. My kids go to Hollidaysburg School District, and I get a letter in the mail saying about how they have done a pesticide application. So then we're going to sprinkle some pesticides all over. So you see that red pesticides. Many schools don't put the money out for fertilizer, but some do. So we'll add a little bit of fertilizer to the school also. Now we're going to move down the street here. I'm missing a bridge. Look at that. We're going to fall into the water. All right, we're going to go down the street, and I have my old clunky car. This is kind of like my son's old truck that's a year older than him. And what happens when you have old clunky cars that aren't working very well? They're going to leak oil. Wow, it's a lot of oil. That poor truck isn't going to be running anymore, is it? It's going to be breaking down on the side of the road. He can't go anywhere now. He lost all the oil. So we have some oil from the cars. We also have in the wintertime our good old salt application. And then we have people that are going to litter and throw their trash around our roads. And these are just some of the sources of pollution that are on our roads. And then we're going to move over here. And what is this? It's a farm. Don't mind the gigantic animals that are bigger than the barn and the house. We fed them a lot of hormones. All right, so we have a farm. In Blair County, agriculture is the #1 industry. So we have a lot of farms in Blair County, and unfortunately, they can be one of the largest polluters. At the Conservation District, we actually work with farmers to cut down the amount of pollution that ends up in our streams from agriculture. So what are the types of pollution? Well, animals. Animals eat, animals go to the bathroom. So we have manure. And I know if anyone lives around Martinsburg, you can tell when they're spreading the manure. All right, so we have manure. And then if they are doing, if they till the fields, they could do no-till, but if they do till the fields, then we have soil. Soil is going to be a source of pollution. And then, of course, we have farm equipment. And if the farm equipment isn't in good working order, sometimes it can leak some oil also. Trying not to kill the tractor like I did the car. All right, so we're leaking some oil all over the fields. Oh no. And then we also have, you till your fields, you want to plant your crops, you're going to have to add some fertilizer. And oh no, there's weeds popping up everywhere. So what are we going to add? Herbicide. Look at the herbicide everywhere. Kill all the weeds because we don't want weeds with our crops. They'll crowd them out. And then we have the fertilizer, also manure. We have pesticides. All right. So we don't want insects coming around and eating all of our food because this food is for people to eat and for our animals that are in agriculture, our cows, our sheep, our goats, our pigs. And so we're going to kill all the insects off too, so that they don't eat our crops either. All right, so what's the problem with all this? Well, when it rains, I'm going to make it rain now. Usually kids are doing that hand signal to make it rain, like they're flipping money around during this, and we're going to make it rain everywhere. And as we make it rain, you'll notice what's happening to all these sources of pollution. Oh, here's a really good example. This is something that we're going to show you as we walk around the park. These two little spots here, do you notice how the water pooled right into there? That is called a rain garden. And they are actually a very good filter for sources of pollution. I thought I'd show you that while I'm over here making it rain. And then we're going to go into the neighborhood. We're going to clean it up. The rain makes everything nice and clean again. But unfortunately, it's washing everything down into the drains. I'm left-handed. I'm squirting this with my right, so I apologize if it takes me a while. I'm not that strong on my right side. All right, and then, oh my, our mess. Look at all that oil and salt. I'm gonna have to, oh, I got it. I'm just switching hands. Oh no, look at it, it's going under the bridge into our stream. What a mess. And now all this is going into our local rivers and streams first. And then if anyone likes to go fishing, you know, the main source of food for your fish are going to be insects, insect larvae and insects called macroinvertebrates. And a lot of those macroinvertebrates are very susceptible to pollution in the water. So fish and the macroinvertebrates, they need very cold, clean water to survive. And so what happens if we get a lot of pollution in the water? They're going to die. So then what's going to happen to the population of our fish? They're going to die. All right. So water pollution is a local problem also, not just a problem at the Chesapeake Bay. So, Beth or Chelsea, did someone want to like lift this up for me and set it over there? So all this pollution went into our local streams, went down the storm drains, into the streams, down here to the Chesapeake Bay, and we're going to show you what it looks like underneath. That is pretty nasty stuff. So all that pollution is going to build up into our streams. And then by the time it all gets to the Chesapeake Bay, it almost looks like a cesspool. Like this. It's pretty nasty. All right, you can put that back up there. Thanks, Chelsea. All right, and so not only is it going to kill everything in our local streams, but it kills everything at the Chesapeake Bay. And that's why we have a lot of laws dealing with water pollution, so we can prevent that from happening. And organisms in the Chesapeake Bay and our local streams are actually making a comeback because of all the regulations that we have. All right, so what are some things that you can do in your own backyard? Well, the first one, Chelsea's gonna introduce herself and talk to you about this. And that would be the rain barrels. And then Beth will talk about the riparian buffer. So does anybody have any questions before I hand it over to Chelsea? And we'll also go to the poll question, which is, what sources of pollution do you have around your own home?
Oh, I might not have made it multiple choice, so maybe it's either, I don't know how it's gonna work here. We'll see.
We'll see. I only chose, I chose one, although I do pick up after my pets, so I really don't have that as a source of pollution. But I do have 3 dogs, so we have a lot of A lot of dog do.
Let's see what we got here. So we'll give it another 5 seconds. And then I will end the polling and we'll see the results. All right. So here are our results.
Oh, nice. All right. So far, nobody has herbicides, and some people do use pesticides. I know my daughter does not like spiders, but I discourage her from using anything to kill them. And all of the above. All right. So we do have some of those. All right. So what we're going to do is talk about things that you can do to actually prevent a lot of those different sources of pollution from getting into our bodies of water that might be surrounding your home. All right. And the first one I'll hand it over to Chelsea. Oh yeah, I'm gonna.
Well, because this one was hard for them to see a rainbow.
Yes. I'm gonna hold it for you. All right. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Chelsea Ergler. I am the Stormwater Coordinator for the Blair County Conservation District. And part of my job is to educate community members and the local governments on ways to help with stormwater management and find different alternatives for managing the stormwater and improving our water quality. So the first item that we're going to discuss today is something that you can do at your house. It's pretty easy. It's something that you probably all have heard of, and it's rain barrels. So here at the park, we have rain barrels set up. It's pretty simple. What you do is you just hook it. It's another way to do downspout disconnect. And the downspout in your gutter flows directly into the rain barrel. And then the rain barrel during rain events collects and stores the runoff in the water coming off of your roof. And what that does is it, instead of it flowing directly into your yard at a fast pace, or in most cases, in some of the urbanized areas, it flows directly onto the street and into the nearest storm drain, which eventually picks up all those pollutants along the way and goes right into the nearest river or stream. So what this does, it allows the water to be stored. You can save it for a later time. And you can use it for multiple things. So first, I just kind of want to go over what the rain barrel, the different parts of it, what they are. Traditionally, they're usually a 55-gallon drum. This one here is just a food industrial grade drum, which you can get pretty much anywhere. Ours we were able to get for free from Del Grosso's. Then you have on the top here, we have a grate, which you can see. I don't know if you can see from the rain event. Ours is pretty full right now. But this grate is really nice. It helps collect debris, because I know if you didn't get your gutters cleaned out, it'll stop the leaves and twigs from going right into your barrel and clogging it up so you can get the water out. Also, the netting also allows, if the water is standing for more than 3 days, it helps prevent or lower mosquito laying their eggs and having an issue with mosquito larvae. So that is a really great benefit. The next feature we have is a spigot. So this is great to have. You always want to make sure it's up high enough so that the water does come out and can flow out. So this, you can hook up a traditional standard hose. You can also fill your watering can or a bucket to use the water. And then in really heavy events, we have an overflow valve. So that way the water does not just gush out all over the rain barrel everywhere. So this is a nice long hose that you can then place into a vegetated area. And that allows the water to dissipate and infiltrate into the ground instead of overflowing and going directly onto the nearest street and collecting all those pollutants. So with these rain barrels, I'm sure you noticed that they're quite colorful and they have a theme. So all the rain barrels here at NatureWorks Park do have a theme. They are from, we did a rain barrel workshop a few summers ago. and we called it the Paint to Drip workshop. So community members were able to learn about the benefits of rain barrels and different things they can do at their home to help control stormwater runoff. And this was great. We partnered with a local artist, and we had different themes for each workshop, and they got to paint their own rain barrel to make it more aesthetically pleasing. But this is something that you can easily do and make yourself just from a plastic drum. You can also purchase them pre-made at any home department store or online. And the Conservation District also sells the rain barrels too at a more discounted price than what you would typically see online as well. But they're great, great functionality. You can use them for pretty much everything except consumption. We don't want to consume the water, but they're great for watering your garden, your lawn, washing your car, washing windows, using it for anything outdoors. Some indoors, depends on what you're doing. But another great benefit is it's free. So instead of hooking up to your main spigot and hose outside connected to your main water line, this one is free and it does the same thing to clean.
All right.
Pretty much it.
All right. Well, thank you, Chelsea. And then let's go to the poll question. We'll go to the poll question. Do you own a rain barrel? It did. There's no one now.
All right.
Well, wait a minute so everybody can answer that poll question. We could, yeah.
Looks like we got a lot of opportunity here, as we'll see here in a moment. All right, so I'll give it a few more seconds and then I'll hit the end polling.
Here, you know what, Beth? You may not be able to hear very well without this on, because I can't.
All right, I just feel bad.
It's fine. It's
I see.
all right. Do you own a rain barrel? 1 person out of 8. All right, so that's really good though. Actually, I don't know that many people that own rain barrels, so that's actually really good. And maybe some of us actually want to get a rain barrel now after seeing the many uses. I know I could definitely use it to water my garden and my plants, because I do that a lot. Right now though, I do have a well. And so what we're going to do next is we're going to talk about other things that you can do. Beth Futrick will introduce herself, and she's going to talk about riparian buffers, which is like a huge topic that we're discussing today, and that you can actually plant riparian buffers in your own yard.
Do you want me to? You can move it.
Okay.
Except for.
Can you guys hear Beth okay?
Hi, I'm Beth Futrick. Can you guys hear me okay?
For now, yes.
Oh, here. I'll just do it because that way I can walk and talk.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, it might be easier. She's gonna
Hook us up here.
hook up here. It's easier for her to hear you.
Can you hear?
I can hear you guys. Can you hear me?
Yep, sounds good.
Okay.
Tell
All
them
right.
what you
Yes.
do.
Hi. Let's see if I can flip it around here so you can see me. Oh, there we go. All right. Hello. Yes. Hi, I'm Beth Futrick, and while I talk, I'm going to walk towards the riparian buffer that we have here. I'm one of the Pennsylvania agricultural ombudsmen in the state, and I'm housed at the Blair County Conservation District. And one of my main jobs is to help make sure that farms stay in compliance with the clean water laws. So we spend a lot of time talking to farmers about manure management, nutrient management, and their tilling practices, because we don't want the nutrients from their farm rushing off their fields and making their way to the stream. And we also don't want the sediment to rush off. And we know farmers don't want to lose their soil, but when they do rototill and we have heavy rain events, a lot of that sediment does make its way off the field and into the stream. And in fact, sediment is the #1 pollution problem in Pennsylvania. So sediment makes its way to the Chesapeake Bay, but it also makes its way to the rivers around here. And if you're a fisherman or fisherwoman, you understand that sediment can kill a lot of fish. It really reduces oxygen levels in the stream. It covers up fish nests, egg nests, and can really destroy populations of trout. So I'm going to flip it around here so you can see our riparian buffer here at NatureWorks Park. So what we did here, the stream is actually through that wooded area, and it is the Beaver Dam branch of the Juniata River. And we have a really heavy vegetated riparian buffer. So a riparian buffer is that land right next to the stream. It's the land that runs along the side of a river. And if you're a streamside landowner, one of the things that we do try to get streamside landowners to do is not to mow right up to the stream bank, because we see a lot of stream bank erosion because of lawns being mowed too short. If you farm, we really encourage farmers to set back at least 35 feet from the stream, either put that in hay that they mow, or if they are doing livestock, we get them to fence the livestock away from the stream and really try to encourage them to plant a forested riparian buffer like what we have here. Now, we didn't, of course, plant this. We bought this buffer like this, but we have a really good 40 feet, 45 feet from the top of stream bank that is heavily vegetated. So a stream buffer, what we usually like to see, like I said, is 35 feet, but if we can get 15 feet, we're happy. And that's zone 1. Zone 1 is that first 15 feet. And I'm going to try to walk over here without falling in. First 15 feet, we'd like to see in this heavy vegetation, because the roots system of these trees and shrubs really hold onto the bank and keep that sediment from eroding. And I'm sure you've seen some really severely eroded stream banks. And in fact, this is probably a bad example because our stream bank is eroded, even though it's heavily vegetated. So here's the river. And like I said, we do have some erosion. It did undercut, but we are going to be fixing that this year. But typically trees planted along the bank holds that soil in place. And it is like the last defense for keeping any polluted water out of the stream. So like Chelsea was talking about, putting in rain barrels to keep that stormwater. You know, if you can control stormwater from running off your property and making its way into the sewer and getting into, into the stream, it makes its way to the stream eventually. That really helps cut down on stormwater flow. Suzanne had talked about rain gardens. That also helps cut down on stormwater flow. But after it makes its way across the land that we live on and work on and build our homes on and businesses on, this riparian buffer is like the last defense. So here at NatureWorks Park, we understand that planting a wooded lot like this may not be something that's practical for a typical streamside landowner. So we planted what we call a multifunctional riparian buffer. So that's broken up again in zones, like that first 15 feet, zone 1. We don't want to touch it. We want that to stay in shrubs and trees, and making sure that the root system really holds that soil in place, that just the mass of vegetation slows the stormwater down, allows the sediment and any pollution that might be in that stormwater flowing across the land settle out and drop out before it makes its way to the river. But with the multifunctional buffer, after that first 15 feet, we started planting things that might bring in some extra income. And this is particularly for farmers. So we have fruit trees that we planted. We have pears and peaches and apples. We planted sugar maples. We have cranberries planted in here. We have chokeberries, blueberries, currants. So this is what we now call our edible buffer. What we stopped mowing, or we're slowing down the mow. We are going through here and planting some short growing fescue to compete with the weeds, but to still make it look maintained. And what we'd like to introduce to landowners is that, you know, once that buffer area starts encroaching on where we live, and we start to manipulate it, like mowing or tilling or putting in a parking lot, you know, that directly impacts the stream. So if we can do something different after that first 15 feet and plant something that we can still use and enjoy, you know, we're getting more bang for our buck. So we can plant things that we can harvest for our own use or harvest to sell, and still protect stream water quality. Now, on the other side of this area, we have, and you let me know if I'm running out of time too, okay? Because I'm trying to walk and talk. We got a lot of area to cover. So we also have a floriculture buffer here. Now this would be someplace that we would ask streamside landowners to maybe do 25 feet away from the stream, the edge of stream. Now this isn't an unusual area, but again, it's just a demonstration. And we planted cut flowers in here, and they are perennials. So we could get in there, and because we're now, this would be what you would have in zone 3. So zone 1's the first 15 feet. Zone 2 is from 15 feet to 25 feet. And that's where we want to plant the trees and shrubs. And something like this, where you have perennial flowers, you may want to keep at about 25 feet away from the stream, particularly if you're going to really cultivate something that you want to cut and harvest and create like for income. You can rototill at this point, some light rototilling, but very little, and very little mechanical manipulation to the soil, but still being able to get in here. And you can see this is the yarrow that's coming up. Yarrow did great here. Makes a really beautiful cut flower for cut flower arrangements. But we have a variety of species in here. But you can also see we have a variety of weeds. So that was one of the challenges, is trying to compete with the weeds. We've been pulling weeds and planting native ground cover in here to try to get a good cut flower stand, but also to eliminate some of the weeds. If you're interested in doing something like this, I would say get a soil test done. For whatever you want to grow. If you want to grow raspberries or currants or blueberries or cut flowers or sugar maples, definitely get a soil test. And then I would say Penn State Extension, that's a great go-to. You can just Google whatever you want to grow in Penn State Extension. They probably have either an online course that you could take, or flyers that they've developed brochures. So that's a great resource. We've used them a lot. So this is the floriculture area. We also do have a wildlife area, which that is over 100 feet in depth. I don't know if you can see the power lines over there, but power lines cross our property and cross the stream. And where power lines go across, they mow that area, and we were seeing some erosion there. So actually Penelec did come in and plant it for us, and we asked them to plant it in species that would attract birds and would support the wildlife that we have here. So there's a lot of berry bushes, blueberry bushes, and we're planting some pollinator flowers in there as well. And our goal is to have a corridor from the stream to the wetland that would be available for the wildlife that we see here. Oh, so we're gonna walk down towards here, I guess. Is there any questions at this point? I'm trying to cover a lot of information at one swoop. No questions?
We did have a question if there would be any rain barrel workshops this summer.
Are we having rain barrel workshops this summer? Probably not. We're still, yeah, I mean, we're still in limbo with that. I guess my recommendation was if you do Facebook, NatureWorks Park has a Facebook page, and you know, we try to keep that current. If we have any kind of events, we get them posted.
It's not doing too much because of COVID right now.
Yeah, COVID still causing us to go with precaution. So I'm gonna, oh, go ahead, Jet, another question?
We do have a compliment that says the rain barrel looked very pretty. And what would you suggest for a stream that is right up against a yard, 15 to 25 feet away would be our whole yard?
Oh, yeah, that's a complicated one. I mean, if you're having erosion now, if you have that vertical cliff, it's really hard to get in and fix it. And my suggestion would be get in touch with the conservation district in your county to see if they could come and help. But even if you could just not mow at least 5 feet from the stream, because when you have that short grass in your yard, that's how short the root system is. So if you have any kind of high water event or high rain event, that's when you start getting that rain or that stream bank from scouring. Sorry, I can't answer it any better, but that's a tough one. I get called out to people's yards that are eroding like that when you're built so close. Yeah. Oh dear. Let me show you the rain garden. Whoops. Uh-oh. Did I do something wrong?
Oh,
Okay. Okay. There we go. Yeah. So here is the rain garden. I know Suzanne had talked about it when she was shown the Enviroscape. This is a great way to slow stormwater from running off. Like, well, here we have a road or our trail, and anything that runs off of there gets trapped in here. The rain garden fills up with water, but we have this built so that there's a lot of compost and sand and topsoil mixed in here, and a lot of water loving plants that really soak up the water. Within 36 hours, the water in this is gone because it does slowly sink down in, it cleans itself, and then it goes down and recharges the groundwater. And this is another part of our multifunctional buffer. You can see we just planted some sugar maples. We have in here what we call like our medicinal plants. There's witch hazel and bayberry. We're going to plant some different herbs in here, like lavender and some mint for teas. We're going to walk over to the wetland. Okay. Can I just take this out? We can all talk then. I mean, is there any more questions for me? I guess
it's just hard to hear them.
Oh, okay.
If you take it out. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, we can't hear you very well when we have our earplugs out, but so anyhow, that's the multifunctional buffer. Riparian buffers, if you can get 15 feet, that's great. If you can get more than that, that's even better. But you know, right now there's just all types of options, like from no mowing, planting pollinators, planting perennial flowers. All of that is better than just mowing straight up to the stream bank. So I guess it's a time for any other questions, or
we don't have any questions at this point.
15. Do we want to show them the
Yeah,
wetland?
Sure. Do you want to do that?
Sure.
Okay. Do we want to do the poll question?
Yeah, do the poll question.
Oh, okay.
For yours first.
So the do we have a poll question?
Buffer poll question.
What is it? Who has planted a pollinator garden or pollinator flowers in your yard? Have you ever planted pollinator flowers in your yard?
I have.
I did.
All right, so everybody has voted. So here I'll share the results.
Oh, that's fantastic. So we have 78% of the people have planted pollinator flowers in their yard. And one thing I want to point out for that is actually when you're planting plants in your yard, in your backyard, it is always best to stay with native plants because these are plants that are used to our native soil and they will do well in the soil. So you don't have to add a lot of fertilizers and things to your soil that will cause water pollution. And they are also better for our wildlife. So our wildlife has adapted over time to use our native plants for food, shelter, things like that. So I always try to stick with native plants when I do pollinator gardens or any type of landscaping around my home, and especially stay away from species that are invasives. I don't know if anyone noticed this spring, all the trees that have those white flowers. I know where I live in a valley, someone had some of those, the Bradford pear trees planted along the driveway, and they had a large field that they didn't mow anymore. And those trees are probably about this far apart, and it's probably close to 2 or 3 acres full of them. You can't even walk through there, and the deer and the other animals in our area can't even get through there. So the Bradford pear tree, or the Callery pear, they have different names, is actually an invasive. So we have to be careful what we're planting. So now I'm going to show you at NatureWorks Park, we have a mitigated wetland, and wetlands are actually very important parts to preventing water pollution because they act like a gigantic basin. And right now it's a little bit dry here, but they actually, all the water, when it rains, it runs off and it comes into the wetland area. And a lot of people they think wetlands are gross because they have a lot of mosquitoes and things like that. But I've spent a lot of time here at NatureWorks Park, and especially when we had a lot more water. There's some water in here in spots. And I had never been bitten by a mosquito before because wetlands are perfect habitats for a lot of different types of organisms, frogs, which eat insects, and snakes and birds. So we get a lot of red-winged blackbirds around here, and they thrive on all the insects that are going to be hatching in or around the wetland area. But it acts like a gigantic basin to filter out pollutants in the water also. So obviously you're not going to have a wetland in your backyard, but something like a rain garden is something that you could have in your backyard. And that's something that's easy to do. You can look up how many inches. I don't know off the top of my head. We put sand and soil, and some of them also have some mulch on top, and then plant water loving plants in the rain gardens. Not quite wetland plants. We have some rushes right here, but you can actually make your own rain garden. If you have a wet spot in your yard that seems to be wet and you're mowing your grass and it's always a problem, I would actually recommend to make your own rain garden there, and it will look pretty nice. So if you ever come out to the park, check out our mitigated wetland. And it was actually built by the Sheets Corporation. When they built their Frankstown store, there was a semi-arid wetland there, a small one that had to be destroyed. And in order to get permits to do that, I'll walk backwards here. Sorry. Hopefully I don't fall. The wind blows and I don't want it causing too much noise. But in order to get a permit, they had to basically build a wetland somewhere else. And they partnered with the conservation district who had this property. And we do over And that area over there, there is an actual pre-existing wetland also. So, but they basically built this wetland here with the boardwalk. And so you can come and check it out. And you can see, oh, look at that. There's a hole. Some of the animals like to come up from the river. And if you walk through this trail here, some people go through here and you can get to the river. All right, so does anybody have any questions for us today? Turn around. That is basically the conclusion. So I hope we gave you some good ideas. So that way it's really important for people to understand how water does get polluted, because I know especially children and a lot of adults don't actually make the connection with the things that we do in our own backyards and around our own homes and on our own roads, and that can cause such a huge problem for our local streams and rivers. And I hope we gave you guys some good ideas of things that you can do in your own backyard with the rain barrels and rain gardens, and also the riparian buffers. So does anyone have questions then?
We do have a question here. How do you prevent wetlands from getting overgrown?
Okay, so that's a really good question. How do you prevent wetlands from getting overgrown?
Yeah, I mean, overgrown with what? I mean, if it's invasive, the only thing you could do is
pull it, and sometimes you have to spray. So it just depends what is in your wetland that's growing, because I know sometimes there are some invasive species that can come into a wetland, and a lot of times, like that's what did we have growing?
Was it stilt grass?
We had cattails.
Oh no, what was it?
Like overgrowing at one point in ours, and I had some students pulling them. Canary grass.
Canary grass.
Yeah, we had canary grass also. And yeah, it's really difficult to get rid of. I believe we had to end up spraying, didn't we? Yeah. So sometimes you can just put a little backbreaking work into it and pull it. And other times, unfortunately, you do have to spray and have it killed. So any other questions?
So are there any critters? I know you mentioned red-winged blackbirds. You, I think, mentioned deer. What kind of things would you maybe see there? Is there particular critters that are pretty common?
Yeah, so the hole that I showed you at the end there was actually from muskrat, and the muskrat actually have holes that go from the mitigated wetland down to the river. So I've seen the muskrat quite a few times. We have a lot of different frogs and toads. The neatest thing ever, I was doing a field trip with some kids, and a wood turtle walked through the grassy area over there in the park as I was like talking to the kids, and we had just found a snake. It was a water snake, but the wood turtle actually walked right across the grassy area, and I was able to take the kids over to see that. We have raccoons. I think that my first experience with the raccoons is they like to get into the trash. So we always have to make sure the trash is taken out. Otherwise, their little muddy footprints will be all over the cans, and they'll have a mess all over the place. What else do we have? We've seen eagles fly through. Yeah, we do have. So we have, if you can see it over here. Oh, there it is.
There you go.
I'm trying to work backwards here. This is an osprey platform, and that was actually an Eagle Scout project from Ethan Shanafelt. So we are trying to attract an osprey to the park because the river is so close by. And he actually did that for his Eagle Scout project and finished it this year. What else? Yeah, we do have a lot of deer also. I heard there was a bear that went through here before too. So we do get a lot of different animals that come to the park, and it's pretty neat. I know a lot of people come out and take pictures, especially when everything starts to bloom, and they'll take a lot of pictures of the different insects and the flowers and the pollinator flowers and things like that. So any other?
Yeah, Suzanne.
Mm-hmm.
Last summer, we were over quite a bit, and we saw at least 5 different species of dragonflies there at NatureWorks, and also your milkweeds and stuff. You had a lot of monarch butterfly caterpillars. And that was wonderful last year.
Yeah, and we find their cocoons all around the park also, which is really neat to see. So we do, it's amazing. The park hasn't even been open that long, and it was like almost immediately we had a lot of different insects and birds and mammal species that come. So it's a pretty neat place. And when you were here, we probably had a little more water in the mitigated wetland. Right now it's a little dry, so it's not going to attract quite as many insects as it usually does, but hopefully our summer isn't too dry. And we can occasionally we do end up pumping some water into it, but usually when it was really wet, it was full. So any other questions?
What was the property used for before? Was it just kind of just natural?
Oh, that's a really good question. So I believe how many acres is it? 13 and a half? Yeah. 14 or 15? 15. Okay, so it is about 15 acres. And I believe we own some property on the other side of the river too. It used to be farmland a long time ago. So let's see if you can see the barn. Okay, so back here along Bedford Street is a big red barn, and that's why I tell people to look for the big red barn. And you're at NatureWorks Park. We kind of have 2 entrances. There's more parking by the barn side, and then you can go over to the other side to park. But the barn is still here because it was farmland. And then when it wasn't farmland anymore, unfortunately, they used the area for fill. And they dumped a lot of fill in here. So I had, when my son was a senior in 2019, we had them come out and actually put our gigantic sign up. And they had to dig through 8 inches of concrete to get the sign, to get the footings ready for the sign. And we did have some issues with in the middle section of the park with getting like grass or anything to really grow in there because there was so much fill that there was no topsoil. So they did use that for fill. And at one point when the property was first sold to somebody that was going to put an old folks home on the property, but then they realized that there was a wetland over here. And we all know you cannot build on a wetland. And then this area where the mitigated wetland is also was really wet too. So when they realized that they could not build on the property, they decided to sell it again. And that's when the conservation district was able to buy the property.
All right, very good. So to wrap up, I'm going to put the links that you shared with me to the Conservation District and NatureWorks Park in the chat. If folks are looking for more resources, how can they reach out to you? And do you have anything else that you'd recommend for educators?
Yeah, so I'm the educator for the park. We actually, when COVID is over, we do host field trips, and we have done other in-person teacher training events here at the park. So if you go to our websites, you'll be able to get the email for me. Unfortunately, I did resign. I am moving away, but you'll be able to get in contact with the new educator for the park. So if you want to schedule anything for your classroom, even like if COVID is still an issue, do something via Zoom or something like that. So you'll be able to find the email there. Email's usually the best way to get in touch, or you can call the conservation district and just ask our receptionist to speak to the educator.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to do this and educating everybody about your park and riparian buffers and rain barrels and all this. It's been really great to see it live and in person there, sort of, at least virtually outdoors there.
Yeah.
So we again thank you to the other ladies that are there with you. So I have placed the Act 48 and feedback forms in the link, so in the chat, so feel free to fill those out. And if anybody has any other questions, please let us know. We have this recorded, so I will share that once I get it processed. And I want to thank everybody again for participating today. So thank you so much. Thanks, Suzanne.
All right, thank you so much. It was so nice seeing everybody.
Yeah. Take care. I'll leave this up for a moment here so you can get to the chat, but have a nice day.
Have a good day. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.